My name is Anna, and for the longest time, I believed that the most profound silence in the world was the one that filled a room meant for a child. It was a quiet that hummed with absence, a palpable void that grew louder with every passing month, every negative test, every shattered hope. My husband Andrew and I had built a life on a foundation of quiet understanding. We met in university, two introverts who found solace in each other's calm. He was an architect, his mind building structures of logic and beauty. I was a translator, finding bridges between languages, between meanings. We thought we understood construction. We thought we understood connection. We were wrong. The journey to parenthood began with eager excitement, a shared secret between our sheets. It ended, or so it felt, in a series of sterile doctor's offices and the crushing crimson finality of loss. Not once, but 3 times. 3 little heartbeats that flickered and vanished, leaving behind a cavern of grief so deep I feared we would never climb out. Each loss was a tremor that cracked our foundation. Andrew's silence, once a comfort, became a fortress. He mourned in blueprints left unfinished, in late nights at the office. I mourned in a body I had come to distrust, in a language of medical terms I never wanted to learn. After the 3rd miscarriage, Dr. Evans, a woman with kind eyes and a voice that never sugarcoated, laid out the results of a battery of tests. "Anna, your body, despite the challenges, is capable of carrying a pregnancy to term," she said gently. Then she turned to Andrew. "Andrew, the analysis shows azoospermia. There are no viable sperm cells." The diagnosis hung in the air, a clinical, irrefutable fact. Azoospermia. The word felt like a verdict. Andrew's face, usually so expressive to me in its subtlety, went completely blank. It was the look of a man whose blueprint had just been declared fundamentally flawed. He didn't cry. He just nodded, as if accepting a minor structural amendment. In the car, the silence was deafening. I reached for his hand on the gear shift. It was cold. "It doesn't change anything," I whispered, the translator in me desperate to find the right words. "We are still us." He looked at me, his eyes a storm of shame and devastation. "Doesn't it?" he asked, his voice rough. That night, we talked in fragments, circling the truth. Adoption was a path, but one shrouded in long waits and uncertainty. Foster care felt overwhelming in our raw state. And then, hesitantly, I broached the other option. Donor sperm. Andrew flinched as if struck. The concept was an assault on everything he'd been taught to believe about manhood, lineage, legacy. His pride, a quiet, steadfast part of him, was already wounded. This felt like a surrender. "It would be our child," I pleaded, my hand on my flat, treacherous stomach. "My body, your love, our family. No one ever has to know. It can be our secret, just ours." The word secret seemed to resonate differently. It offered a shield for his pride, a private solution to a public-facing problem. After days of tense discussion, he agreed. His condition was our private sorrow. The solution would be our private pact. We would carry this truth together, a shared burden to protect him, to protect us from the pitying looks, the whispered assumptions, the crushing weight of other people's opinions. The process was clinical, yet filled with a new, fragile hope. I underwent cycles of hormones that made me weep at commercials, while Andrew held me, his guilt and determination a tangible force. Then came the day of the insemination, impersonal, hopeful. And then the impossible. 2 pink lines, a strong, steady heartbeat at the 8-week scan, a growing bump. Each milestone was met with a mixture of delirious joy and a sharp, secret anxiety. We told our families. My parents cried with happiness. Andrew's mother, Elena Pavlovna, was a different story. A widow who had poured all her formidable energy into her only son, she saw him as a paragon. She kissed my cheeks, her eyes sharp and assessing as they dropped to my belly. "Finally," she said, the word loaded with a lifetime of expectation. An heir for my Andrew. The baby shower was her idea. A grand affair at her impeccably kept house, a showcase of the perfect future she envisioned. The air was thick with the scent of roses and pastries, filled with the chatter of aunts, cousins, and her circle of elegant, judgmental friends. I sat in the center, a queen on a throne of pastel gifts, feeling like an imposter. Every "he'll have Andrew's eyes" or "she'll inherit his genius" was a tiny needle prick of our secret. Andrew stayed close, his hand a constant, reassuring pressure on my shoulder, but I could see the strain around his eyes. He was playing his part, the proud, expectant father, while guarding a truth that could shatter the entire performance. It happened during the toast. Elena Pavlovna, glass in hand, her voice ringing with false warmth. She spoke of legacy, of bloodlines, of the profound joy of seeing one's own flesh and blood carried forward. Then her gaze, cold and pinpoint accurate, landed on me. "Of course," she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "We must be so grateful that modern women are so resourceful, that they can find solutions to any little problem. It's a marvel, really, what can be achieved when one is determined." A chill swept through the room. The subtext was not subtle. It was a sledgehammer. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. My mother's face went pale. Andrew stiffened beside me, his fingers digging into my shoulder. She wasn't finished. "After all, the most important thing is the child, isn't it? Regardless of origin. A mother's love can cover so many mysteries." The accusation hung in the air, naked and vicious. She was publicly accusing me of infidelity, of passing off another man's child as her son's. I saw the looks: curiosity, shock, a flicker of belief. I saw Andrew's face crumble, not in anger at her, but in a profound, gut-wrenching shame. He was being publicly cuckolded in the eyes of his entire family, and his pride, the very thing we sought to protect, was being shredded to protect a lie we had chosen. In that moment, something in me broke, but it wasn't my spirit. It was the dam holding back the truth. The secret we'd carried to shield him was now the weapon being used to destroy him. Protecting his pride meant letting him be seen as a betrayed fool. The translator in me, the bridge builder, realized I had been translating silence into a language of deceit. It was time to speak the truth, plainly. I stood up. The room fell utterly silent. I felt the weight of the baby, our baby, a solid, real presence within me. I looked not at Elena Pavlovna's triumphant glare, but at Andrew. I saw the boy in him, wounded and ashamed, and the man I loved crumbling. "You're right, Elena Pavlovna," I said, my voice surprisingly clear, carrying across the hushed room. "There is no mystery. And you are also right that Andrew is the most important part of this. So important that he was willing to do anything to build our family, even when the world defines a man by things he cannot control." I took Andrew's hand, pulling it from my shoulder to hold it tightly in mine. His was trembling. The problem wasn't my resourcefulness. The problem was a medical diagnosis. Andrew is infertile, azoospermia. It means there are no viable sperm. A collective gasp sucked the air from the room. Elena Pavlovna's face went from smug to ashen. "We lost 3 babies trying," I continued, the pain of those losses giving my words a fierce, raw edge. "And when we found out why, we made a choice. Together. We chose to use a donor. We chose to take the love we have and use it to create a family. We chose to keep it private, not out of shame, but to protect Andrew from exactly this kind of cruelty, from people who confuse biology with fatherhood." I turned fully to Andrew now, tears streaming freely down my face. He is this child's father in every single way that matters. He held me through every loss. He supported me through every procedure. He loves this baby more than anything. His strength, his kindness, his integrity, that is our child's inheritance, not a strand of DNA from a stranger. The silence that followed was different from all the others. It was stunned, heavy with revelation. Andrew was staring at me, his eyes wide with shock, then flooding with an emotion I hadn't seen in years. Relief. Pure, unadulterated relief. The secret was out, and instead of destroying him, my words had defended him, had redefined him not as a victim of betrayal or a flawed man, but as a courageous and loving partner. He pulled me into his arms, right there in front of everyone, burying his face in my hair. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Oh God, Anna, thank you." The party dissolved after that. There were awkward goodbyes, tearful embraces from my parents, and a frozen, silent Elena Pavlovna, her weapon turned back on herself. The scandal she'd hoped to create had become the revelation of her own son's private pain and his wife's fierce loyalty. In the car driving home, Andrew cried for the first time since the diagnosis, great heaving sobs of release. We didn't speak. We just held hands, the weight of our secret gone, replaced by the solid, exposed truth. The fallout was messy. Some relatives were wonderfully supportive. Others gossiped. Elena Pavlovna, after a period of icy silence, offered a stiff, awkward apology, more for being caught than for her cruelty. The relationship was forever changed, a boundary firmly drawn. Our son Leo was born on a bright spring morning. When Andrew held him for the first time, his face was a map of pure, uncomplicated wonder. There was no shadow of a secret, no ghost of shame, just love. "Hello, son," he said, his voice full of certainty. Now, as I watch Andrew on the floor building a wobbly tower of blocks with a 2-year-old Leo who has my hair and a laugh that is entirely, uniquely his own, I understand the true architecture of a family. It is not built on the unshakable bedrock of shared blood, but on the conscious, daily choice to love, to support, to be vulnerable, and to stand together against any storm. Our foundation was cracked, yes. It was tested by loss, by a difficult truth, and by public scorn. But we chose to repair it, not with the brittle mortar of secrecy, but with the strong, honest steel of shared truth. And what we built, in the end, is stronger and more beautiful than anything we could have ever originally designed. We built it together, word by word, choice by choice, heartbeat by heartbeat, and it is, unquestionably, ours.